Hey folks, it's Randy Wilburn here, and I've got a couple of bonus episodes for you. You know that typically in the month of July, we take some time off for ourselves to rest and recharge, and this year is no different than any other. So in our 7th year of this podcast, we have assembled a couple of really special episodes. We typically like to share with you episodes that have had the most number of downloads, and these two definitely qualify. The third one is an episode that is kind of near and dear to my heart, and one I wanted to reintroduce, especially to everybody listening, because I think it's a great reminder that it's never too late to do the thing that you're called to do. And I wanted to share that this summer season. So if you're out on the beach, if you are hiking in the mountains, if you are working, or if you're just traipsing around and hanging out with friends and family, regardless, I'd love for you to take a listen to some of these episodes. I hope you'll enjoy them as much as I did. And remember that the story continues. We've got some great new episodes coming up in August, and we're really excited to share the fact that we have partnered up again with the Walton Family Foundation, and we have plans for some amazing episodes this fall that I think you will really be excited about. So without further ado, here is one of our latest episodes, Best of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Hope you enjoy it, and we'll see you back here in a couple of weeks with new programming. Peace.
It's time for another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas, the podcast covering the intersection of business, culture, entrepreneurship, and life in general here in the Ozarks. Whether you are considering a move to this area or trying to learn more about the place you call home, we've got something special for you. Here's our host, Randy Wilburn.
Hey folks, and welcome back to another episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. I'm your host, Randy Wilburn, and I'm excited to be with you as always. You know, this summer, 2025, I've actually made it a part of my mission to get out into the community as much as possible to record some of these episodes. And so I'm excited to be able to do that with this particular episode. I've had a chance to go to where people are to tell their story. And so today's episode is going to be no exception to that. I'm sitting here with Lynn Wong and Mike Thompson from Pedal Pops. And Lynn and Mike reached out to me via email a while back, and I was familiar with Pedal Pops. I didn't know about them. And, you know, Lynn and Mike reached out, and we got on a phone call, which is kind of what I do, to learn more about somebody and why we should try to feature them on the podcast. And you know, they had a really compelling story that I thought it would be worth sharing. And again, I love the fact that they're here in Farmington, straight down Route 62, which is also MLK, which is also Main Street. It's also a lot of things, but these guys have a really, really cool food truck park right here on 62. And I figured, why not have these guys on the podcast to tell their story? And so without further ado, I want to welcome Lynn Wong and Mike Thompson to the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. How are you guys doing today?
Doing really well. How are you, Randy?
Good.
Glad you're here.
Yeah, I'm glad I'm here too. So listen, I would love for you, one of the things that we do, and if you've listened to a few of the episodes, which I think you said you did, I'd love for you guys just to kind of share your superhero origin story. We all have one, but I'd love for you guys to talk a little bit about how you got to this place that we are at right now with Pedal Pops. And I know it's a long arc, but you find a place where you can tell the story, and then we'll segue into where we are in the current times.
Sure. I guess to get it started, I started off in Atlanta as a small entrepreneur. I was in corporate accounting. I enjoyed that for a while, but then I realized that I wanted to do something a little bit more and kind of get into the entrepreneurial side that kind of runs my family. My mom was a piano teacher, so one of those things I really enjoyed growing up was like her her dedication to her students and things like that. So as I started off in a small grocery store, so to speak, we were making ice cream, and I really enjoyed that piece of it. And that's something that I've always wanted to do. I've always had an interest in sweets and things like that. So we tried that. Didn't quite work out as well as we thought. I went to another business right down the street from us. Literally, you step out of our house and it's 2 doors down. That's how close it was. I enjoyed that for a while. And then we had an opportunity to relocate to Northwest Arkansas for one of the big box companies. And then about that time, I decided I wanted to, when we moved here, I just wanted to take an opportunity to kind of adjust what I was doing. So I'd been in the corporate world for so long that I decided that I wanted to take a stab at entrepreneurship. And that's kind of where we started off with Pedal Pops.
Yeah.
So
the pops came before the park.
The pops came before the park. That is very, very true. That's a good point. So let's see. How does it go? We wanted to do something since we were living in Bentonville at the time. We wanted something that was kind of nostalgic that kind of fit in with the small town feel of Bentonville. I mean, Bentonville at the time was small. It's kind of grown a lot larger than that. But at the time, we wanted something that would fit in with it. So we ended up finding a tricycle, and we actually ended up buying a tricycle, and I would ride around the Bentonville Square area. And originally, we started off with wanting to sell ice cream. The Pops side of it actually kind of fell into it due to, how did we put it? There was something that basically happened with the Department of Health with ice cream. They weren't quite as accepting of us as we had thought. And then so we basically kind of adjusted our format. And then once we did that, then we started making fruit pops right after that.
Mm-hmm.
There was a guy in Atlanta. The name of the company is King of Pops. He had a great word alliteration for it. And he did something, and it helped. He actually had something that was attractive to both kids, teenagers, adults. It actually was attributed to everyone. So everyone really enjoyed it. And I thought doing something like that would be kind of fun to do as well. We tried to avoid the dairy piece of it just because we were trying to avoid the problems that we might have run into. And so that's kind of how we fell into the niche of making the all-natural frozen fruit pops.
I love that. I love that story. And, it's so funny. I was telling somebody earlier today, there's nothing new under the sun, right? So inspiration is what it is, and it represents something different for each of us. That's why that story is I think is really important. And so you were able to kind of take that King of Pops, which is a great alliteration and it's a great name. And that was probably some of the encouragement that you needed as you were getting Pedal Pops off the ground.
Right.
And, the other thing too is that there's a lot of people that, dairy is not always their first choice when it comes to a cold dessert. And so it's nice. I mean, I'm a big sorbet guy. I love sorbet. I can make homemade sorbet. There's something to be said about that. And then maybe some of, again, dairy just interacts differently with different people. So you want to give people some options.
Yeah. And to back up a little bit too, one of the things I'd done at the very beginning was I had taken a look at what was available in the market shelves as well. So typically when you walk down the shelves, you'll see ice cream, and it's just full of fat, full of really, really bad things, a lot of ingredients you really can't name. And so we basically realized we wanted to make something that was healthy and something that is actually beneficial and that, would appeal to the masses, so to speak. At first, we originally made it with sugar, and then later on we adjusted our formula, so to speak. And then we started using stevia. And stevia so it's no added sugars. And then we also, with the Pops, there's no high fructose corn syrup. There's no preservatives, no artificial colors, or no artificial flavors either.
Which is why it's in a lot of places like Ozark Natural Foods.
Correct. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So I had to get that in there. So
no, I appreciate that. It's I was going to say there's lots of other places.
No, of course. Of course. So I love that though. And people want to have kind of like a guilt-free dessert if possible. We're constantly trying to make desserts at home. My wife and I have a contest to see who can make the best, homemade dessert that's kind of all natural, that doesn't offend our palate, but at the same time tastes good, and is worth trying. So, I mean, it's one of those things. So you just never know.
It's funny you mentioned with O&F, they're actually, when we actually got to the point in time where we started doing wholesale accounts, they were our first wholesale account.
Really?
They were. And that was back in, when was that? Back in 2012.
Okay.
And that was one of the things that I was very appreciative. And, there's folks that have been there the entire time that still, we still work with it. We really enjoy, their feedback.
Well, I love hearing that. And as a continuous shout out to Ozark Natural Foods, as most people know that are listening to this at the time of recording, I am on the board. And I really do appreciate one of the things that the Ozark Natural Foods has endeavored to do is to be a place where local producers can hang their shingle and put their stuff out there.
for the world to try. And I think, you're an example of that. 13 years of being able to have your pops in Ozark Natural Foods, that's huge. And there are a lot of other stories like that. And it's one of the reasons why ONF is trying to get about 30% local producers in the co-op. And they're slowly getting to that number, which is huge because especially in this day and age with sometimes we run into logistical problems and other issues that come up when it comes to shipping food from one place to the other. It's nice to know that a lot of the things that you get that are in your local grocery store are locally made. So
I'd like to add that with Ozark Natural Foods, what we did experience was also the people that work there that made a difference for the little entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Because, both the leadership as well as the people who made sure the shelves were stocked were always kind and supportive of us. And it is in our experience that is not necessarily a given.
Yeah.
So it's not just the longevity of the relationships, it's also the people that create the longevity of the relationships. And we're just so proud and so excited that we get to have walked this time together and look forward to more.
I love that. So Lynn, since you sharing a little bit, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you brought your skill set to the table here for Pedal Pops and how that has married with Mike's passion for what essentially you guys created together? Because I think it's important for people to know that, we don't always have to do this thing alone. And it's always nice to have somebody else that can help you out with the process. And so I'd love for you just to share a little bit about your background and how you have kind of brought your skill set and experience to the table here with Pedal Pops.
Oh, gosh, that's a long question for a little life. But gratefully, born and raised in Singapore, educated there as well in people watching, more formally known as sociology, and began my corporate life and corporate career with, at that point in history, the world's largest shipping line. Through that work, I had the opportunity to accept an expat assignment to the United States, and that brought me to Atlanta, Georgia, where Mike and I met. And one of the highlights of our partnership that made it so fun and easy was that we both love food and we both love culture.
Yeah.
So date nights were never an issue. And it was even better because he cooks and makes desserts and has no issues making them for my friends.
Yeah.
Along the way, I discovered that he had a secret dream that he wanted to someday own an ice cream shop. And it came from some wonderful childhood experiences. But the, accountant trained, responsible man that he is did the business plan like they tell you to do. And it got a little overwhelming when you see how much money you need. But I think this is where I compliment him really well as chief visionary and chief cheerleader, because I went, okay, when the day comes that you have your ice cream shop, I'm not standing outside begging people to come in and handing out 50% off flyers. I want a line wrapped around the block because they've already had your ice cream. So you want to make ice cream? Let's go make some ice cream. So literally we got to a point in, just exchanging and sharing visions for the dream that we went to a big box retailer, bought a lot of Cuisinart ice cream maker machines, got some gallon buckets, and he started making ice cream and we started selling it to friends who had parties. And we were always gifting our friends ice cream to refine the flavors and all of that stuff. And one day in, I think 2009 or 2008, some friends of ours believed in our dream so much, they created like a banner for us. And we both had the first experience of selling the ice cream at a local festival in town. And from then on, Mike was hooked.
Yeah.
And so, his ice cream making ventures has led him to put significant energy, money, and passion into two businesses that didn't quite work out the way we had envisioned. But when we got to Northwest Arkansas in 2011, we realized that with no kids and a pet at that time, we could both reinvent ourselves. And if we didn't take the chance on ourselves, who would? And even if we failed, what's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
He still loved accounting. He could always go back to corporate. But we're sitting here today because he never looked back and just kept on growing.
Yeah. I love that. I mean, that's a very special story. And I think it probably resonates with a lot more people who would like to admit it, because I think sometimes we run this gamut of trying to be who we are in our public persona versus who we are privately. And sometimes the two don't necessarily come together. And I think it's important for people to understand that to be your full authentic self sometimes requires sacrifices. Sometimes it requires you to do the uncomfortable thing to kind of push forward. And, it's so funny. I saw an illustration the other day, and it was a story about a swimmer named Trudy Ederle. And there's a scene in the movie where she's swimming the English Channel. She's the first woman to ever do it. And she comes upon just a mass of red jellyfish. And it almost looks like there's blood in the water, but it's actually just jellyfish. And her coach is telling her dad, the dad's like, gotta pull her out because she's not going to make it through that. And he said, no, and the coach was like, no, sometimes you just have to go through a thing as opposed to you can't go around it. You can't do that. Sometimes you have to go through a thing to get where you're trying to go. And I think that's an important message that we all need to hear because, thinking that you're going to start a business or, excel in your career without going through some pain and heartache that's not going to happen. And it's going to require, everybody gets their pound of flesh taken out at some point in time. And so, whatever that looks like, and it sounds like you've had that experience in the evolution of pedal pops. And I think it's important for people not to understand or glamorize entrepreneurship so much that they don't recognize that it is a sacrifice and it is a challenge. And I'm reminded of that every day as an entrepreneur. I'm like, man, this is not easy. It really isn't.
And even getting started as an entrepreneur, nowadays, the programs that are available nowadays are much more organized. So help you figure out how to do things such as E4All or Startup Junkie,
Kiva,
or Kiva. Yeah, there's lots of programs that are available to do that. I know back when you became an entrepreneur, back when I became an entrepreneur, those programs really weren't available.
No. As a matter of fact, I was telling somebody about SCORE and they were like, what's SCORE? And I was just saying that was a society of retired corporate executives. And SCORE is still around. And I want to say that SCORE has some loose affiliation with the Small Business Administration. But the bottom line was you could basically get a mentor, somebody that had either run a business or had a high degree of success in business. And they would kind of shadow you and give you some advice and guidance and would either choose to listen to them or not.
The funny thing you mentioned that's one of the things that when we actually did go through SCORE and we took two different products. We took our ice cream and we took our fruit pops. And then the ice cream they loved. They're like, oh my gosh, this is going to succeed. You're going to do really, really well. The fruit pops, they looked at it and said, well, it's okay. I really wouldn't focus on this and maybe you shouldn't do this. And, you come to that point in time, like, do you follow your passion or do you kind of listen? And we kind of follow our passion and listen at the same time. So, even today we're lucky in the aspect that we resolved the problems that we had with the guidelines that we needed to follow within the Department of Health guidelines. And so we actually do make ice cream now. So, and that's one of the things that we still have the ability to kind of work through everything else. So we still met with our SCORE mentors and we still work through the different folks. And it's great once you find someone, as a fellow entrepreneur that you actually kind of bounce things off of as well.
Yeah. So, and it sounds like your business model here has evolved over time.
Oh, definitely has.
Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of where you were in 08, 09 versus where you are today? Because it sounds like you have a little bit of everything. I mean, you have this beautiful food truck park. You have a whole setup here. I'm looking at kind of the internal workings of what seems to be, I can imagine when you guys are busy, this is a very busy center of a hub of activity.
Oh, it definitely is. Definitely is. I guess as we kind of got started, in 08, 09, there's just kind of figuring things out. I had the desire, had the passion, had the guile to do it, but I just wasn't sure where it was. We actually had a really dear, near friend who basically, kind of gave some guidance. I was trying to remember the movie with Bill Murray in it, but basically, you just need to take baby steps. Just take baby steps. I can't remember what it was, but I had Richard Dreyfuss in it. But the thing was I was so overwhelmed because you have to get all these different certifications, licenses, all that kind of jazz.
I love that. Yeah, you're showing. Lynn is showing me some pictures of Mike back in the day, and just kind of what they say is they don't despise small beginnings. You got to start somewhere, and I think it's funny that you actually showed a few pictures to me of where you guys started from, and that probably keeps you grounded in terms of where you are now and where you want to go.
It does. So I was going to say over the time, as we talked about, we, with great encouragement from my family, not just Lynn, but from my extended family, they have been always very, very supportive. And that's something that I really, really wanted to do was to try to, follow this entrepreneurial dream. So when we moved here, everyone in Northwest Arkansas has been very, very gracious and very nice. They've been very warm and welcoming. And that's one of the things, like, when we started playing around with their flavors, the very first flavor we made was strawberry basil. It's not exactly what I would say is, a very kid-friendly pop, because kids try it and they're like, what is this flavor? But, we started doing things like watermelon blueberry. Sorry, blueberry lemon, I think is what it was. Watermelon blueberry is something we do now. There's so many flavors that kind of run through your head. They kind of get confusing at times, but it's kind of neat. As we've kind of grown, we've gone from originally having a tricycle, and then we rented space. And I found that, going to,
I like that.
Lynn's funny because she keeps popping up pictures. So, we started off with a tricycle, and then we ended up doing larger events. And then later on, we ended up buying a food truck of our own. And then we have graduated, from smaller steps to larger steps to, now actually having a facility of our own. We talked about it, and we bought this 169 West Main Street. That's where we are. We bought this facility in 2018, and then we kind of basically manufactured our fruit pops out of it 4 or 5 years. We actually we went through COVID as well, as a lot of businesses did. And we survived, which was great. A lot of businesses didn't. Our heart goes out to the folks who didn't quite make it. And then in 2020, we started to kind of work on Pedal Park itself. So we wanted a place basically where we could have where people would actually come to the facility. We've always been a mobile business. So we've always gone to the different places, like, the botanical gardens, the Fayetteville farmers markets. We always go out to the events, but we wanted a place where people could actually come together and find a place to do that. And that's kind of where we end up with Pedal Park.
Yeah, I think, and the thing I like that's cool about this is that, people might say, oh, well, you're kind of early here, but this area is growing so fast. And I was talking with the executive director for Ozark Regional Transit, and we were just talking about just the silly amount of growth that's happening in Northwest Arkansas. And so I remember when I first moved here 10 years ago, this area here was not as developed as it is now. And so much so that, at the time, Farmington was like, man, you're going to Farmington? That's way out there. Now it's like, well, Prairie Grove, and people are I have a lot of friends that live out in Prairie Grove because it's just, they have housing choices and there are a lot of options, but, it's not that far away. And I like that all of these different local city centers are popping up where people are like, well, that's my neck of the woods. So I'm here on the south side of Northwest Arkansas, down here on MLK or 62. And I have a microcosm of things that I can choose from, including, Pedal Park.
Yeah, sure. It's funny. Lynn kind of pointed out to me over time when we talk about the evolution of pedal pops. I'm kind of jump around here between pedal pops and Pedal Park, but with pedal pops, we always start off with, we wanted to make the fruity pops that we made.
Yeah.
But then later on, we try to figure out how to bridge the gap between young and old. So like if we would sell something at an event, we would say, hey, would you like a fruit pop? And people are like, oh, it's kind of too cold for my teeth and stuff like that. It's like, okay, well, we have some boozy pops. If you're like, wait, what? You have what? You have boozy pops?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we end up doing to help ourselves grow with that.
Sure.
Yeah. And that helped us kind of bridge the gap. And that's kind of like, we're trying to figure out how to get all the different folks to come into our place. And that's one of the things that as we've kind of grown with Pedal Park, we've kind of grown that aspect. So when people come in, we give them opportunity to come here. When we blew out the idea of Pedal Park was actually to have the 4 food trucks that we have here today. It didn't start off that, It didn't start off all that quickly.
Yeah.
Or that successful, but it has grown over time. And so that's one of the things that we have now is we have 4 food trucks from 4 different places. So we didn't want to have any kind of repeat things.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we end up doing here.
Yeah, I love that. So tell me a little bit about, since you brought it up, tell me a little bit about Pedal Park and what's represented here from a food truck perspective, in addition to the anchor, which is Pedal Pops. And you've got an outlet here where people can kind of come right up to your door and order. And then you have a nice seating area here. And then when if they've already eaten something from one of the food trucks, they can come here and get a nice dessert. But I get the concept, and it's a really cool concept. But tell us a little bit about how this all came about and how who you chose to have at the Pedal Park.
Pedal Park was really born of us just loving to collaborate with other businesses. So when the opportunity came to create Boozy Pops, it coincided with the growth of craft beer breweries in Northwest Arkansas. And so, we would go there on dates and just hang out and visit with them and just share with them. And some of the local breweries were fascinated and were supportive of Mike trying to create custom popsicles, with their beer. Not everybody is excited, but that was really the sort of beginnings of it, of collaborating with others. And as we grew out of Bentonville and then into Fayetteville and then Farmington, really motivated because the rent was just too complex and it was just a little hard to keep prices affordable for the pops. And so we had to find the balance that worked for us. But as we got into Farmington in 2018, we started realizing that, we were actually bringing Mike's original dream of an ice cream shop to life.
Yeah.
We just said ice cream shop. We were willing to let go of the timeline, willing to let go of the details, and just stayed in the business because we followed his passion. And it was always about making ice cream, making popsicles to make people happy.
Yeah.
Right. In 2020, when the world shut down for a little bit, like everybody else, it challenged us to rethink. Are we in it for some more, or is it time to complete the chapter? What was it? And Mike and I are blessed to be fairly well traveled in both work and leisure, and our families are fairly international. So we've been the beneficiary of, people who have been kind to us, broken bread with us, and shared desserts with us. And so we realized a few things through the first years of COVID, that we were going to keep Pedal Pops alive. And in 21, when there was quite a lot of unrest, we realized that we were ready to bring all our resources. So our hearts, our energy, our savings, our ideas, to do what we can as a couple and as individuals to grow happy, healthy communities. And like you said, there are very few original ideas, but there are lots of original expressions.
Sure.
And so how Mike would express that complements the way I would express that. My work is primarily with humans, services. Mike's through creating tangible offerings in physical spaces. And so in 21, we had the courage to start talking to people about what it would cost to build out the space that we have in Farmington. And we caught the ear of one of the local architectural firms through a wonderful human by the name of Jessica Wallen, also a local advocate for housing and design. And she heard us through the ramble and the vision and the excitement and introduced us to the company. They sat, listened to our dreams. We originally wanted to use containers to create the space as a nod to my career in global shipping. But the price tag came back at just under $1 million.
Oh, wow.
And we realized that if we had $1 million, that would still not be a responsible way of spending it. But then one day, after talking about it some more, we realized Mike was still very excited about it. And we came up with a low-cost approach of simply landscaping the space, building out the patio, and having a covered porch. We took it back to the design firm, and they were so generous with us, and they helped us really bring the dream to life.
Yeah.
And so really Pedal Park is an extension, if you will, of our home, really. That Mike and I, used to have a home in Atlanta where we were the site of all sorts of parties that would welcome the young and old and pets when we have room for them. And Pedal Park seeks to do just that, creating a space where humans, young and old, can come together in real life, smile at each other, and remember what it's like to visit, have some food, have some treats, and just be neighborly. So that's how it kind of all came to be. And over time, the 4 food trucks that we have here really reflect that. Presently, we have a Asian style food truck, Yummy Yang's. We have a Indian curry place. We also have
That'd be Curry and Go.
Curry and Go. We have El Jefe, the taqueria, our very first tenant, and a Cajun food truck.
Daisy and Doyce.
Daisy and Doyce.
Yeah.
And what is so cool about all of them is they actually look out for each other. So we do the first step by making sure they don't have competing items on the menu. So we compete together as a team, even if we're separate businesses. But they really look out for each other from a safety, from a sharing business tips and cheering each other on to keep the place clean, open when they're customers. What a delight to have them.
One of the things that, as Lynn mentioned, they do a great job helping each other out. The interesting thing is all 4 food trucks are all entrepreneurs. They actually just started their own food trucks. So, we try to take our experiences having grown over time to help them out with their food trucks as well. We can't provide them how to cook, but we know we can help them guidelines with certain things they need to take in consideration.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, and it sounds like it's quite emblematic of what you find here in Northwest Arkansas, that collaborative spirit, right? Where, there's some competition there, but at the same time, we're all just here trying to survive and have some fun in the process and maybe make a buck or two. And, especially in the vein of what you guys do, feed some people and create some happy customers.
Entrepreneurship, at its heart is in service of customers, in service of other humans, right? So with our space, it's also fun for us to see how many other businesses we can elevate to help everyone thrive. So when we got our beer and wine license, we also made sure to include as many local breweries and cideries as we could. And, based on our location, we now think of ourselves as their little ambassadors in this side of town. So if someone in the Prairie Grove, Lincoln area wants something craft brew, they can stop by for their first pint of something from a local brewery or cidery. And if they're excited, we would certainly encourage them to, head up north to spend some time at the brewery. Same thing with the distillery, and wherever we can from a space perspective, supporting other entrepreneurs and creating pop-up space for them, whether it's E for All or Canopy NWA's Inspired Hands Bakery, where we can create a blend, we absolutely will. And it's really awesome that the food trucks owners also look at these pop-up opportunities as supporting and not, taking away from their businesses.
Yeah, and again, it's what you guys are doing, I think, is important here in Northwest Arkansas. And we see it over and over again. As I was sitting here thinking about some of the breweries that we've had on the podcast, Black Apple, which is Leo Orpin. Those are some amazing folks over there. And I actually thought, man,
yes,
some of his ciders would make a really good pop, as a matter of fact. So, that would be quite interesting. So
we have, give ourselves a little picture. We have like 9 beers on tap, 9 local beers on tap. We have 3 local ciders on tap as well.
Okay. Which is kind of rare. You don't always see that, A lot of times you'll see somebody have Angry Orchard, and it's like, I can get Angry Orchard anywhere. So,
and as Lynn mentioned before, we started playing around with some boozy pops. And one of the things that we worked with was Core Brewing back in the day when they were still making beer. And so, like Leghound Lager, that's one of the ones that they had, and we actually made that into a boozy pop. So
really,
yeah.
Now, let me ask you this: this is just off the top of my head. Can kombucha become a good pop?
It can. You have to figure it out. Funny enough, one of the local places that support us, and we support them as well, Neal Family Farms. They're a blueberry and blackberry farm up in Rogers. So we make pops for them. And one of the things that they did was they worked with Ozark Beer to create a blueberry kombucha.
Okay.
And we actually made that into a pop. It was a little bit on the sour side, but you basically kind of adjust people's perceptions, because if you say to a young child, it's like, hey, would you like some kombucha? And they're like, what is kombucha?
No, yeah.
They won't go for it. But if you say, hey, would you like some like a sour blueberry pop? They usually go for that. They like that idea.
What kid doesn't like Sour Patch Kids?
Yeah.
So this is just a natural extension to that. So, it certainly makes it easier to think about. So, well, I'd love for you to maybe tell us a little bit more about how you've kind of brought the community together here at Pedal Park. I know when we last spoke, you talked about some of the events like bingo and trivia, which really helped to bring people together. Is there a current schedule of events that you have that you're saying, hey, we're open and you can come here and do this? Now, I would imagine I could come here and bring a set of cards, a deck of cards if I wanted to come play here, or maybe my mahjong table or something like that.
Yeah,
so there's options, right?
Definitely a mahjong table.
Definitely a mahjong table. Yeah. So talk a little bit about how you create space for that.
Sure. Like the Pedal Park's motto is food, friends, and festivities. That's one of the things that we do. That's kind of how we kind of got things going as far as like, trying to attract people to our area. So one of the things that we've tried a lot of different things. The ones that have really stuck have been bingo. Bingo's on Wednesday nights. Trivia is on Thursday nights. And for the rest of the summer, we actually have a disc golf putting league from the LDPGA group coming out each Friday. And basically, you can pay a little bit of fee to get into it, and then they give out prizes for the winners. For us, for Wednesdays and Thursdays, it's all free. You don't have to pay. You can just come out and hang out. And we do ask that you support the food trucks. And if you want to buy something from us, that's great too. Not necessary. Over the past, we've also tried karaoke. What other things have we tried? Huh?
The current schedule is Wednesday, Thursdays, and Fridays. And that's where we seem to connect with most of the community wanting to also spend time at Pedal Park. And in the past, we've had a variety of things that now are more of a pop-up if there is a match. So we've been a place for local singer-songwriters, that is led by, Lacey Hampton, who's a local award-winning musician, and her brother. We've also had dance classes here. We've also had pop-up yoga. We've also had just a variety of other things. Oh, once a month, we have theology on tap that is hosted by the
Farmington United Methodist Church.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's theology on tap. You can come grab a brew and hang out and talk with the folks from the church.
I love that. I think that's a great idea. I mean, so you're really incorporating the whole community, and
we're trying our best. We definitely have our space open. So, we like the idea of entertaining programs and having people kind of come out and use our space. And we try to do whatever we can to support them. I think, as Lynn mentioned before, Canopy actually comes out through Inspired Hands, and they actually sell non-baklava, great baklava.
The food that they have at Canopy is amazing.
It is great food.
I mean, there's a bunch of different items that Canopy produces through their entrepreneurial program, which is excellent. So I highly recommend that to anyone that will listen and check it out for themselves. So, okay, so we get the idea of the community engagement. Now that you guys are in the place that you are, we're on this side of the pandemic. So we're looking forward to moving forward. And granted, there are a lot of things in the world that are going on that sometimes cause us pause, but I digress. I think the reality is that life goes on, right? I mean, I'm still recording my podcast on a regular basis. You guys are still making pops on a regular basis. So what are you most excited about for the future, both for Northwest Arkansas, but more importantly for Pedal Park?
We're incredibly excited at the growth of the area and the really unique opportunity where people, wealth, and wellness is actually coming together in Northwest Arkansas. It's extraordinary to see world-class facilities, both with Whole Health Institute as well as, Market of the Ozarks by the AFIC organization kind of come up, where we're supporting farmers and we're supporting wellness, and the airport is growing.
Can we get pedal pops at the airport?
We are trying.
Okay. Because I can see it's portable. I can carry that on a flight with me if I need a cool down on the way to my flight. So
for anyone who's listening.
Yes, there we go.
Yeah, if anyone's listening, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah. We have heard from the team at the airport, and they're acknowledged that they know our product and they'll see what they can do. And so for that, we're super grateful. Like I mentioned before, Mike and I got a chance to travel quite extensively, live abroad. And so we're just excited to do our part to be that blend of local and global, and that there's a lot of civic opportunity to come together about housing, transportation. We're excited about that. It's a little known fact, but there's actually a small bike lane just outside Pedal Park. And we have limited parking, so we would love to see more golf carts and cyclists and all that come safely to Pedal Park. We are most excited to keep bringing that global to local through Pedal Park, whether it's through your taste buds, through Asian food, Cajun food, Mexican food, the pop-ups that Canopy Inspired Hands Bakery brings, supporting domestic vendors like the people that supply our wines, or, the global companies that we get to support, like your Coke and Sprite. is incredibly important for us as we continue to cast a vision to become this community pub hub, if you will, where it is as inclusive as we can make it. So we're being thoughtful about gluten-free, dairy-free, nut-free, to just always have something that anyone
could enjoy,
Yeah,
if they come visit.
It's funny. So, we've talked about a little bit about the fact that we've actually traveled pretty extensively. We've been fairly lucky. We have an international household. We've been to Singapore, Southeast Asia. We've gotten to travel a good bit. So we always try to bring those flavors back as well, especially into our fruit pops and things like that. And so that's one of the things that we really enjoy is trying to figure out, like, how can we take something like one of the flavors we have now is like mango chamoy. We didn't really know. The funny thing
about
was, like,
tamarind?
Tamarind, we do some tamarind stuff as well.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
But the idea is I didn't even know about chamoy until someone introduced me and said, "Where's your chamoy?" I was like, "What the heck is chamoy?" and we actually, came up with our own recipe for it. And so a lot of people will try it, and it's, a lot of taste testing. So that's one of the things that we actually encourage people to come out as well as, if I'm ever in the kitchen playing around trying to figure something out, I'll actually walk out into the porch and say, "Hey, would you give this a try and tell me what you think?" And the crazy thing is, we try to find kids because kids will give you their honest feedback. And that's what cracks me up is like, "Hey, what do you think about this?" Like, "Oh, this is horrible." Like, okay, we know that we need to change this, or this is great. So that's the kind of feedback that we look for. It's nice to see.
What is one flavor that you've created that you thought in your mind, you were like, "Man, this is just not, I don't think this is going to go over well," that people have just fallen head over heels for?
Wow, that's a hard question.
Usually it doesn't begin with, "I don't think people will like it." It's more the other way, like, what might people like? What other creative combinations can I come up with based on the ingredients I have? And so
I do know that one of the ones that didn't quite work out, which I thought would work out really well, was grapefruit mango. And I thought because it's tangy and a little sour, but that we haven't really sold many of that. However, there's some flavors around that we just kind of had an experiment. I think I had extra honeydew melon sitting around the kitchen, and I threw a slice of peach in there. And honeydew peach is one of our seasonal flavors that people absolutely adore, and they just love it. I'm actually looking over your shoulder trying to look at all the other ones that we have, and rainbow is by far, kids' favorite. That is, if you say the word rainbow, it's like, "Oh, what do you want?" We have all these different flavors. How about rainbow? Rainbow! I want rainbow. Strawberry, mango, kiwi, blueberry. It's sweet, mellow, tart, and refreshing. So as an adult, that sounds great. As a kid, I think they just like the idea of rainbow. So that things like that are super successful.
Oh, you know what? One of the experiments we did have way back when we first started at the Bentonville Farmers Market, back where the Harps was still standing, was actually the prosciutto melon popsicle.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, there was no dairy involved. So we were, coloring within the lines, but I think that was maybe a bit progressive, like leave the prosciutto melon alone. Don't convert it into a pop.
Yeah. Actually,
but yeah, on the peach that is currently in our honeydew peach, which is a seasonal offering, they're from the local farm in Lowell with Vezant peaches.
Mm-hmm.
So come get it before I eat them all.
Okay. That's funny because, I've been to some, there's a really great ice cream spot in San Francisco that I go to called Byright Creamery. And Byright makes a lavender bacon ice cream that when you hear it, you're like, it kind of offends your sensibilities. You're like, this should not work in any way, shape, or form until you've eaten it. And you're like, holy crap. I can't believe they married lavender and bacon and it tastes the way that it does. Yeah. And they actually make several like off the wall flavors where you're like, these flavor profiles should not be in the same room together, yet they are. Yeah, they are. And so it's like, so sometimes you have to you have a happy accident, right? And you're like, oh my gosh, we discovered something that really works.
Yeah, we made a candied bacon we made a candied bacon ice cream before, and we were kind of put it in with we have one that's really popular. It's the brown sugar vanilla.
Yeah.
Literally take out the white sugar, put in dark brown sugar, and it's amazing. Oh my God, I gave away a recipe. That's okay. That's okay. But the whole point is like, it's amazing when you come up with different flavors and things like that. So when you're talking about the candied bacon, that to me just sounds divine. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really good. And I have to give a shout out because Byright's one of my favorite ice cream spots in the whole wide world. And anytime I'm in San Francisco, I make the ride over by Dolores Park to come check it out. And so, and as somebody that lived there for 6 years, it's always nice to get back there. But we all have those places that we just like, oh, this is so good. So, but no, I really appreciate you guys sharing that. Last question that I have for you, and this is really for that aspiring entrepreneur that might be listening. I just want you to give them a word of encouragement or advice or guidance that you think would be really helpful, especially for somebody that either is thinking about relocating into Northwest Arkansas and set up shop here, which we've had many people on this podcast tell their story about what that looks like for them. Or it's somebody that's already here and they're saying, you know what, maybe I work for one of the big, I always say the big three, but because you can figure it out there. But I mean, I work for one of the big companies and I've really always wanted to go out on my own and do something like that, which is something that you've done. And what advice would you give to that individual, whether somebody coming here or somebody already here?
Sure. What I would suggest them to do is if they have that desire and that passion, then definitely follow through with it. You can always try it out in some of the smaller markets. There are definitely programs that are available. Funny enough, for when we came up with Pedal Park, I was actually going through the winter cohort with E4All, the E4All program. And basically that kind of helped me kind of refamiliarize myself with some of the concepts and help me figure out how to do the marketing and things like that. So there's also things like programs like Startup Junkie. There's a few other business incubators, which
ASB TDC.
Thank you. The
It's
ASB
a mouthful,
TDC.
but yes, I mean, you could do that. I mean,
Yes.
yeah, Startup Junkie. Like
AFIC at MCO.
Yeah, I mean,
AFIC MCO.
AFIC is brand new,
And they have
beautiful facility.
Mhm.
If you don't have your own kitchen, it's a place where you can go and try something out.
Yeah.
You know, that's the other cool thing is that 10 years ago, we didn't have nearly as many kitchens as we have now, where it's like, if somebody has an idea, like specifically on the food side of things, like, you know, you could spin up a quick ghost kitchen in some of these certified commercial kitchens that are around here and test out your idea. Put it up, you know, stand it up on the weekend and see what you can get. And if there's some, you know, I mean, you don't have to go out and buy a whole facility until you know that there is a market for it. And I think that's the challenge that sometimes people struggle with. They put the cart before the horse. And I think nowadays there are plenty of opportunities for you to put a taste test out there to see what the market will say. Because the market will let you know. They either like it or they don't like it.
Yes.
And you guys know this all too well, right?
Yeah. You know,
Yeah.
it's funny you mention that because one of the things that we thought about way back in the day, and if you look around here, not exactly a huge amount of room, but you know, the fact that there are commercial kitchen spaces that are now available for rent. So as we talked about, like with AFIC, there's also Stephanie Kirkpatrick with Bartleby's.
Bartleby's, yeah. Stephanie's great. She's another provider to the co-op.
And she's another, I was going to say she's a provider to the co-op, and she actually has space up in, I think up off Elm Street. She actually has a kitchen up there that you can rent space for. So, I mean, there's lots of places where before you could not rent space. And so you weren't able to do that. So you would try it out in your home.
Yeah.
Which is still a great place to do it. I mean, there's the cottage industry law, which helps you out if you want to do, you know, cookies and cakes and things like that. You can always reach out to, you know, places, the Fayetteville Farmers Market, Bentonville Farmers Market, Bella Vista, Salem Springs, all those different farmers markets. There's an opportunity for you as a home baker, or even, you know, trying out to do like mushroom farming. You know, there's lots of different things that you can do to actually kind of get out into committee and try out and see. So we see what works.
Yeah, exactly. I've thought about mushroom farming actually, because I love mushrooms. Yeah, I would love to.
Yeah, Fat Top Farms.
Oh yeah, no, Fat
down the
Top.
street.
Yeah, and there's a few others, but Fat Top they're really good. I've actually been trying to get these guys on the podcast, and we've just never been able to get our schedules together. But
not to get Zach on the podcast.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I know who Zach is, and
he's a good guy.
We have talked, and we just it's just whether it was the pandemic or something else. But that story will be told at some point in time. So, but they have a really good one. But you know, as I've talked to I'm friends because it looks like I don't miss a meal here, as you can see. But I have befriended a lot of the best chefs in the area, and they all, you know, speak very highly of Fat Top and Am. But I just like mushrooms, and you know, now it's so much easier to kind of mushroom farm and set it up for yourself. So I'm thinking about dabbling my toe in it, just trying it out, you know, making some pink oyster mushrums and some others.
We'll offer you a pop-up spot at Pedal Park.
Okay, well, there you go. There you go. Nothing but mushrooms. So, I appreciate that. Well, listen, Lynn, Mike, I really appreciate you guys taking time out of your schedule, inviting me here into the nerve center of where it all happens. For anybody listening, what's the best way for them to get in contact with you? Give us your website. We'll put all of this stuff in the show notes, but I want to make sure that people know how to reach you and know how to find this location here in Farmington.
Sure. Our address here is 169 West Main Street, Farmington, Arkansas, 72730. Our website is www.pedalpark, that's PEDALPARK, NWA.com, or www.pedalpops.com, and it's PEDALPOPS.com.
Yeah, and I saw you make a distinction about pops and popsicle. Is there any reason for that?
Yes, that's one of the things. So way back in the day when we were originally trying to figure out our name for Pedal Pops versus all natural fruit popsicles. Popsicles is a brand name owned by Unilever.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah, so it's crazy because the ice cream is available. So back in the day, we used to say, hey, Xerox me this, or hand me a Kleenex. All of those things are trademark names, so you can't actually use those. So that's why you see things like Pedal Pops or Johnny Pops or Good Pops or
the King of Pops.
Or the King of Pops. Yeah.
I get it.
So it's there. But, we understand. People have asked us recently, they like the idea of Pedal Pops, and people will reach out and say, hey, can I use your name? I know it's trademarked, but can I use your name? And we politely decline. But
yeah. Well, I'm telling you, I registered I Am Northwest Arkansas a while back, and thankfully, shout out to Wright Lindsay Jennings for helping me with that. But you get something that you think is good or that may have some legs to it. You want to hold on to it. So for sure. But Lynn Wong, Mike Thompson, thank you guys both so much for joining me. They are the proprietors of Pedal Pops and pedalparknwa.com. And I really want to encourage you to come down here and check them out. Let them know that you heard about it first here on the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. If that's the truth, if you already knew about it, then I'm just telling you something that you already knew about. But if you didn't, let them know that you heard about it first here on the podcast. And we would really appreciate it. And we appreciate you guys for joining us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Randy. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, there you have it, folks. Another episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. To learn more about us, please visit us at IAMNorthwestArkansas.com. Remember, our podcast comes out every Monday, rain or shine. You can also find us on every major podcasting platform, including YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and you can download the podcast and listen to it on your run, on your walk, as you're washing the dishes, whatever you're doing, you can listen to the podcast. We would really appreciate it. I'm Randy Wilburn, your host, and we will see you next week with another new episode of the I Am Northwest Arkansas podcast. Peace.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of I Am Northwest Arkansas. Check us out each and every week, available anywhere that great podcasts can be found. For show notes or more information on becoming a guest, visit IAMNorthwestArkansas.com. We'll see you next week on I Am Northwest Arkansas.
Support for this episode comes from Signature Bank.
Hey, this is Gary Head, founder and chairman at Signature Bank of Arkansas. 21 years ago, we set out to build a community bank that knows your name, values relationships, and treats people how they deserve. That's still how we do things today. Whether you're buying a home, growing a business, planning for what's next with Signature Private Wealth Management, or need bilingual banking through Banco C, our team is here to help with local decisions and real relationships you can count on. Call 479-684-3700 or visit signature.bank and tell us you heard about us on I Am Northwest Arkansas.